and this heads I win, tails I don't lose much. But it's actually all is available to us anywhere we look, and you find it in all kinds of places. So, for example, if you look at Richard Branson in England, who's as far away from the Patels as you can think of, and if you examine the way Branson runs his different businesses, they're very much in sync with the Patel model of operating, with heads I win, tails I don't lose much. So for example, before the formation of Virgin Atlantic Airlines, Branson used to be in the music business. He was a publisher of music, and these different like Boy George and the Sex Pistols and so on were now some of the brands that he had brought up. And so one day he goes to his partners and says that he wants to start an airline, and he wants to basically fly between London and New York, and that he thinks it's a great market to go into. So his partners were quite floored. They said, "Look, we're doing very well in the music business. We know nothing about the airline business. You need a jumbo jet to get into the airline business, and that jumbo jet costs about 200 million. We don't have 200 million, and we don't know anything about the business." So he says, "Well, someone sent me this business plan." And Branson was smart. He said that if an executive in the music business gets a business plan to start an airline flying between London and New York, that this business plan has gone to 300 other places before that and got turned down at every place that knew anything about the business. But he was intrigued by the plan, and he tried calling British Airways over the weekend to try to book some flights just to see what the customer service was like, and he couldn't get through. So he said, well, either there's so much business that there's enough there for a second player to come in, or they're so bad that a second player can come in and do a better job. Either way, there's room for that. And then his partners told him that, yeah, that's all fine, Richard, but we don't have the money, we don't have the jet. We don't have a jumbo jet. How are we going to do this? And so what he did is he called 206-555-1212, which is the operator in Seattle, to get the number for Boeing. And they gave him the Boeing main phone number. And he called Boeing, and he said he wanted to speak to someone who leases jumbo jets. And they'd repeatedly hang up on him. And finally he got to some guy who would actually speak to him, and he said, look, we typically have one or two customers in each country. We know who they are. You're not one of the people we talk to in England. Goodbye. So he said, no, listen, before you hang up, do you have an old used jumbo that you'd lease to one of these customers if they came to you? He said, well, you're not one of them, but yeah, if they came to us, we actually do have an old jumbo lying around. He said, oh, well, if these people came to you, what would it cost to lease the jumbo? And so the guy mentioned, the pricing and such. He said, would you do a short-term lease? Because the jumbo is just sitting there. He said, yeah, we'd be flexible with our customers. So he convinced Boeing to lease him that jumbo because it was just sitting there. And then in the airline business, before the plane takes off, you sold all the tickets. So your revenue comes in before you've spent a dime, and then you pay for the fuel 30 days after the plane's landed. So it's a negative cash flow business in the sense that you don't need even working capital. And so he went about advertising and got the staff hired and got everything going and got this airline off the ground. And if you think about it, if someone can start a business in a tightly regulated industry like aviation, with very high capex needs, like needing these jumbos, with no capital, then you can pretty much say you can do that in any business, right? And if you think about the way Branson set it up, he had no downside, because what would happen if the thing didn't work? Well, he just returned the airplane, and it'd be a few $1,000s in terms of tens of thousands or whatever. And his music business at that time was producing about $3 or $4 million a year in cash flows. So they had more than enough money to kind of take care of any eventualities. And that's the nature of Dhando, is that you're making these asymmetric bets.